cell phone, but they're going to use the location of the cell phone. So if the location of the cell phone is not the same as the location of the transaction, that would, sort of up the fraud profile and might make a call.
Sure, but it won't work for internet transactions.
Well, actually, I think it would, because if you geolocate on the IP address,
yeah,
and then correlate that with where the phone is at the moment, if the IP address is, across the country from where your phone is, I think that's a...
Yeah, but how's Visa going to get your IP address? The merchant has to change their website and feed the IP address to the merchant, to Visa, right? That's the challenge, is to get this without a chicken and egg problem. Because if we have to have all the merchants change it, then we got a problem. It's not going to happen.
The one problem with one-time passwords, especially through SMS, is that a lot of your iPads, smart devices have cell phone capabilities built in. So now your iPad gets stolen, and you're using the iPad to do the transaction, and they're sending the SMS right to your iPad. So the out-of-band note is no longer out-of-band.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Well, what happened to the days I thought that credit cards were being more intelligent, they were based on challenge response or one-time time-based password or something. So, even if it was a card not present in the vendor, the person really had to have the card.
People are trying to do that now. So for internet things, there are now cards that have an OTP on them, but today you got to change the websites.
Or when they do the new Google, but I haven't read the details yet on what Google, the new Android OS is supposed to have for credit card transaction.
Yeah.
Proximity. But the two main questions I had about this was, hey, I hadn't been aware before. Did you say that somebody just opens up a store and they want to do business on the internet, that they're responsible of any of the credit cards transactions that are out there?
The merchant?
Yeah.
All the merchants are the ones who they're the front line.
So is PayPal, if they only accept PayPal, are they protected then?
If they're
level 4 and you pass it off, they absorb the risk.
PayPal would be.
Right, but it matters the contract.
Well, I mean, PayPal is a member of our steering committee. They're super supportive. I mean, they have, in my opinion, probably the most advanced fraud detection on the planet by a long. I mean, banks think they know what they're doing, and they are. By large, some of the folks in this room are the top tier of it. But I'll tell you, PayPal really knows. I mean, 100% of their business is on the internet. They got 100 million users doing payments all the time. The fraud issues they've got hundreds of people in fraud, building technology.
Because this could kill any merchant. I mean, they could have 90% of their business be fraudulent.
Well, they'll get cut off before that really happens. When your fraud rates go to 9, 10, 11, 12, 13%, there's very few people who are going to actually process for you. So the only people who are in that bracket are the adult content people. They're running those kind of fraud rates, and they tend to get cut off by the processors.
And then in the physical world, you couldn't have a newspaper like this you have on the screen. There's really nothing that it just survives. There's nothing that's done. It's sort of out in the open because you can't be tracked. People are just selling this stuff.
We're getting better at law enforcement on this stuff. So, but if you hear about, I don't know if you know Shadow Crew. So Shadow Crew was one of these websites, had about 4,000 members, pretty notorious. So what happened with Shadow Crew was, and Secret Service basically busted it and found a few people and arrested them. But what happened was they got lucky. So an off-duty cop saw somebody at 2 in the morning at an ATM machine pulling out multiple cards. Said, hey, that looks strange. Went over, talked to the guy, found out he had a bag full of white plastic cards. And at the time, some people didn't have magstripe checking, the track 2 data checking on their back-end systems. So you could go fish a guy's credit card and create one, and it would work in an ATM. And so they found this guy, and he was part of the Shadow Crew group, and then they used him to infiltrate and take over the server and manage it for a period of time and figure out who 20, 30 people were, and arrested about 29, 30 of the top ringleaders of it. But we got lucky. Now we're getting better, but these things keep popping up. And what's the future of this? Strong crypto, right? They'll use PGP, strong crypto. These things will float around. They'll be running on Tor or something like that, and then you won't be able to take them down. That's where and my guess is probably terrorists do that today. If they're smart, they would already be doing it, and we won't even know. But for sure, the financial crime will go that way too.
And the other piece of that too, Dave, is quite frankly the law enforcement's efforts, whether it's the FBI, Secret Service, or other entities. Their real nurturing and development of relationships in international bodies, quite frankly. That is not a 3 to 6 month thing.
That's right.
That's building years and years and years of relationships so that when they actually have something hard, they actually get somebody on the other side to react to it. You know, that's kind of important.
I agree. I think that industry and law enforcement have done a great job over the last few years coming together and partnering. I know the banks work with FBI and Secret Service really well. PayPal has done a lot, and eBay has done a lot in this area. Microsoft's doing a lot. You know, they'll file these big John Doe lawsuits at ISPs to collect it. That basically gives them the ability to collect the logs and take a look at them and do data analysis and then provide evidence to law enforcement. So I think that that's been a major positive step forward, but a long way to go. And as you point out, those international relationships are critical because these guys use international boundaries as part of their firewalls. You know, they'll put, if they're attacking a US company, they'll put servers in China so they make sure that there's an 8 or 10 hour time zone difference and the ISP speaks Mandarin. So you've got to have your fraud guys speak multiple languages and be awake 24 hours a day in order to control the problem. So they're smart. So how do these guys move money without us being able to track them? They use mules. So people who think they've got a work from home job, they think that they're working for an export-import company, a healthcare payments processing company, and these people basically take money, comes into their bank account, they'll get $1,000 into their bank account, and then they'll transfer $800 either to a different bank account, or ideally, they go down and they take it out of the ATM machine and they walk across the street to Western Union and put $800 in Western Union, and then the guy can pull it out anywhere around the world out of Western Union. So that's typically what happens. And if in the UK we track mule recruitment incidents, the UK payments guys track it, and you can see about 100 to 150 different fake companies per month that are running ads to recruit people. And those ads might be on Hot Jobs, Monster, they might be spammed out. In fact, sometimes those ads are running in physical newspapers too. They'll put them in the job section and have a website to, you know, Everclear Green Processing Company, and people will go there. And what's interesting, these guys make money on the signups now too. They're so audacious, they actually charge you money to sign up to take their job. It's amazing. They'll charge you $300, $400 to sign up. So they make money whether they move money through the mule or not. And we've seen more professional mules as well. Some of the busts we've had in the last 3-4 months have been professional mules where people seem to have come in from Eastern Europe and they've got multiple passports. So they're running 5 to 10 passports. They're opening up 5 to 10 to 20 bank accounts. And then they're recruiting other people with these work from home scams. So there's an interesting mix of sort of the professional and the just the supposedly innocent person who's out of work or they're a college student and they're moving the money around. Okay, 09, we talked about this at the break. The stranded traveler scam. Some of you may have received this, you know, from a relative, a cousin, a friend. Hey, I'm traveling in Europe and like I got mugged and I lost my passport, and can you please send me $2,500 so I can get back to London and take the flight home? Typically, they're basically what they've done is they've phished or got a keylogger on somebody's computer and they've gone onto their Facebook account. They control their Facebook account. They know when they're traveling. They know that you're related to them. They can maybe take over their Yahoo email account because it's the same password, and then they send out those emails from that person's account. And we'll talk about why that's more evil, because think about what happens if they take over your account and start emailing your professional contacts. We also started seeing these blended attacks where we saw online chat, where people say, hey, I'm the bank and I need to talk with you, customer service on the internet, and there's a real live person sitting in some clearinghouse somewhere basically running scams. One of the things, speaking of clearinghouses, that I found is it appears to me, there are call centers that are just set up for fraud. So one of the things I do in my day job, I've got an internet website selling iron key products, and we get fraud on that thing. And we've had people basically who use a credit card, and we know that the IP address was, for example, from Florida, and the card was registered in Utah. And our fraud thing sets off an alert, and we think, well, why is someone buying like 18 of these things? Like, it's a pretty large purchase, and it's a weird shipping address. So we add our own in-house layer of fraud detection above what we get from our processor. So we'll block it. We get a phone call saying, hey, it's me, I'm trying to buy these things. Well, the IP address from the phone is from Florida, from basically a hosting service that provides virtual phone numbers. So we call the person whose address it is, we look them up, call her, and it's a 60-year-old woman. She's like, what, I'm not trying to buy these iron keys. And what we can hear on the background is that people are making up stories about, yeah, I live in this town, and they're making up town names inside of the state of Utah, towns that don't exist. We're sitting there on Google like, that town doesn't exist. They're making this stuff up, and you can hear in the background like 20 other people doing the same thing. So they've got these call centers where people are just faking out to try to get declined transactions through the system. It'd be nice if we had a reporting mechanism to try to break some of that. We also see fraud that's basically spoofing things that aren't banks, that aren't merchants. So in this case, this is a gambling site, a big one out of Europe, Bwin. It's a huge, in that country, legal gambling site. These guys created a bunch of fake sites. So this was Bwin Investments. They had another couple of them. These were three-dimensional, animated, cool. I mean, these look better than the real gambling website. These amazingly beautiful flash animations and things, trying to get people to get in, get their gambling account information. And when you've got a gambling account, you've probably got 5 or 10 grand in it, and it's really easy to move money in and out of those systems. So they love to get onto these gambling sites. Okay, let's talk about present day and then wrap. So phishing continues. You can see about, for example, these are attacks over the last 12 months or so against a certain set of financial institutions, and you can notice how the fraud kind of ebbs and flows between them. Typically, if you get a large amount against a financial institution, someone's found a way to get money out, and then when it goes down, somebody's figured out how to patch that problem. And these problems could be anything from web vulnerabilities, back-end system vulnerabilities. It just happens that there's a lot of mules there, what have you. There's a bunch of different reasons why it ebbs and flows. Here's a new emerging threat that we're seeing. So this was from about a week and a half ago. What they're doing is they're spear phishing email service providers. So most big companies don't do their own email campaigns. They use email service providers to send the email to their customers because they have good deliverability. They work with the ISPs. They know how to get your marketing email delivered to your customer. You generally don't send it yourself, right? Especially if you're sending millions of them. Yeah? So what the bad guys are doing is now they've got a list of the IT people who work in these companies, and they're spear phishing them, trying to get onto their systems, so then they can get their customer lists and start basically spreading malware out to their customer lists. And this has just started happening in the last couple of weeks. Now, interestingly, the malware that's getting sent to these system administrators, as of a couple of days after it was being detected, only 2 antivirus products out of 40 detected this malware. These are the only 2. Norman and whoever Komodo's OEMing from. So no Symantec, no McAfee, none of the big guys were picking this malware up. And this stuff is remote control malware. So not only is it a keylogger, but allows you to do back connect and get in and basically control the person's entire computer. And it turns out this has been going on for months. People just didn't know. And notice how the email is targeted at the person. So this was Neil at ReturnPath, targeted at him, talking about, hey, I want that wedding stuff, I forgot to invite you, here's some pictures, and that's the malware dropper. Yeah.
I would assume the insider players don't have administrative rights on their desktop, because that would stop that
Oh, unless it's a 0-day vulnerability.
Well, again, if they have administrative rights, if they don't have administrative rights, there's a whole bunch of places they can't.
Sure, yeah.
Floating that payload.
It's harder if you don't have admin rights, that's for sure.
Most of these guys are going to have it, but they're probably technical people who say, I need to have admin rights.
No, see, that's the point. Technical people use those tools. They don't need admin rights to bring over people doing.
So I think managing admin privileges is something that people need to get a lot better at. But these are targeted at the sysadmins of these companies. These guys have admin rights, most of them. I mean, I happen to know because they're getting infected and they're compromising systems and getting out into the databases.
They log in, they're using their root password.
That's right.
Too lazy to go back.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the latest stuff, which is guys targeting IT people inside of infrastructure providers. And this is just what we know about. It's been going on for months.